I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Stage, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to continue our Western movie reviews. And we're here to discuss Billy the Kid versus Dracula. And if you wonder why I'm laughing, then we'll go watch the movie.
Not seen the movie.
Yeah, you have not seen this movie. I watched this movie a couple different times over the course of the time you took off. And I was just like, when I rewatched it back, I'm thinking, God, I forgot how dark this movie could be, like from a lighting standpoint. And when I watched it, I know I told you this, but I got Julie to watch it with me. And she goes, Jesus Christ, this is darker than our living room. I'm just like, oh, yes, it is. There's more light in our living room than there is in this movie. Well, to a degree, because there are moments of like good lighting and bad lighting. But when did you first see this one, Butch?
Joel, I probably saw this a few decades ago. Actually, it was one of the first Westerns I ever saw. Because at the time I had just gotten into like the Universal monsters and had just kind of discovered John Carradine. Mm. And I was like, hey, a genre at the time I didn't care for, an actor I like. And I watched this and I was like, oh my God, what the hell have I stumbled upon? And I still wonder that every time I see this film.
There was a running gag up at a fright farm about great horror movies being shown the one day. We've got classics like Halloween, Wolfman, the original Wolfman, Bride of Frankenstein, Hellraiser, Friday the 13th, and then there's the immortal classic Billy the Kid versus Dracula. And I remember the PA announcer laughing his ass off the moment after he said that. And I'm like, here's the thing. I had watched Billy the Kid versus Dracula, so I got the joke. And my brother's like, wait, I know you're a Western fan too. He goes, is that movie any good? I said, it's a great guilty pleasure movie. The movie is fun. And I gotta tell you, John Carradine's Dracula sort of looks like Abe Lincoln to me.
That would be awesome to hear John Carradine do the Gettysburg Address. Let's do a quick recap for the folks at home that have not been blessed with the opportunity to view this fine piece of cinema. Yeah. Somehow Dracula gets to the west. Yeah, I was gonna say weird west, and that's probably right. He sees this attractive young lady in a locket. He causes the people in the wagon train to get killed. He poses as the uncle who was coming back to the ranch, takes his place, tries to convince the young lady to become his vampire bride. The problem is that she's dating Billy the Kid. And everything else you just need to watch this film for. Poor John Carradine. I was reading something, and he said this was the worst film he ever made.
Yeah, I read that. there's some good clean facts you're leaving out. You know who really brought Dracula to the West? Those damn Romanian gypsies. Okay, that's what's in this movie. No, but in a sense they do, which is weird. Like they're camping out by Castle Blood, as they say. It's like, who the hell camps out by Castle Blood? This is like going up to Camp Crystal Lake and say, please don't, wearing a shirt that says, please don't kill me, Jason. And, it's like, Jesus Christ. And here's the thing, too. Later on, the same gypsies, yes, those same gypsies who camped out by Crystal Blood, they're saying about Dracula. I'm looking, yeah, you camped out by like, what the hell is wrong with you? It's like, forget Billy the Kid for a moment. Forget shooting Dracula. Somebody just go up to Castle Blood and shoot the gypsies, and maybe your problem is solved.
doing a John Carradine. God bless him. When they try to do the Dracula hypnotized, there's a red light shining on him,
Yeah.
and he starts.
His eyes are as big as quarters.
You know, some funny things I read and noticed. Let me turn that off. That's hurting my eyes. That red light. The name Dracula is never uttered in this film.
No, you're right. His name is never actually uttered. They say Castle Blood, which makes you feel. It seems like you're Castle Blood. I think of Camp Blood, which is why I said Friday the 13th. But they say Castle Blood. They're in a weird way in this movie. They're saying Dracula without saying Dracula.
Yeah, it's Dracula with the file number serials. Gosh, it's Dracula with the serial numbers filed off, is what I'm trying to say, and not succeeding at. I'm guessing Universal still had the rights to Dracula, so they couldn't say his name out loud. I mean, he sure looks like he's wearing at least what the costume he wore in Castle of Dracula, or whichever one he first plays Dracula in. Castle of Dracula, Dracula's guy. I can't remember it. It sure looks like it's the color, the same outfit, and what you would expect Dracula to be wearing. The evening gown, formal evening gown, the cape, the hat. I will say, John Carradine is one of my favorite Draculas, though. He had that voice. He kind of looks half dead to begin with because he's so skinny, and just he does have a presence. That's something that I feel like actors who play Dracula should have. And I'm going to probably step on a bunch of people's toes right here. And I'm not doing it to be mean, but it's just stating my opinion. Gary Oldman didn't have that. He didn't have that presence. I don't know. He was too pretty for me to play Dracula.
Yeah, Gary Oldman, great actor, but yeah, I'm with you on the whole Dracula thing. Now, though I will say it doesn't help when you have a really, really great actor and Anthony Hopkins playing for the doctor. Why? Like who did Gary Oldman piss off that they go and cast Anthony Hopkins? Like seriously, but I'm with you on John Carradine. He really carries this movie, even when he's not on screen. Your mind is on him constantly. For as fun as this movie is to sort of tease, it's a fun watch. And John Carradine's Dracula, and yes, I'll say it, Universal, you can kiss my ass. Dracula is terrific. He doesn't, yes, he looks like Abe Lincoln a bit in the face, but John Carradine's, with his eyes, with his posture, with his stance, and I love the way he walks across the room. Like the way he moves his body is really unique. I've never seen a vampire just walk across the room the way he did. I guess the only vampire I'd compare it to, now he doesn't, to be clear, I'm not comparing the way Jonathan Frid walked, but Frid had a way he would walk, and it was just magical for the character of Barnabas. With John Carradine's walk for Dracula, it made the character of Dracula feel his own in every way.
I'll grant you both of those points, and I'll raise you one more. And you done know where I'm going. Sir Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Vlad Tepes, or however it's pronounced. I probably mispronounced it. Or Vlad Dracula. He was an aristocrat. He was I believe it's pronounced Voivode. He was a prince of Wallachia, and he was royalty. And Sir Christopher Lee, to me, that's Dracula right there. I mean, he walks in, he's like, "I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my home." You're just like, "Yeah, okay, whatever you say, sir." You just buy it. I mean, he has a that air. You mentioned our Romanian couple. You're probably too young to remember this. There used to be these commercials in the 70s and early 80s. There was this woman, it was for Folgers coffee. Okay. And like the you'd have this couple, and the wife would make coffee, and the husband wouldn't take any, or they'd be somewhere and he'd like, oh, I'd like a second cup, and she's like, he never takes a second cup. And there was an older lady. I mean, not great grandma, but middle aged, let's say. And they were always like, Mrs. Olson, my husband doesn't like coffee. And she'll be like, have you tried Folgers, the richest, most aromatic kind of coffee? You couldn't get away from Mrs. Olson in the late 70s. I mean, she seemed like she was in every commercial break. The woman, the actress, let's see, what is her name? Eva Oster, if I read my writing correctly. That woman, the female of the mama of the Romanians, went on to become Mrs. Olson.
Cool.
So there's your first bit of trivia.
Cool. Do you think like every time like somebody threatens Universal to take the name Dracula, they just take this movie and say, this is why you shouldn't take this? they don't use any other movie as an example. They just say, you know what, we need to find the one vampire movie that applies Dracula, but it's so bad nobody will look anywhere else, and this is it.
That man, that's a pretty good description for anybody who hasn't caught on. I feel sorry for everybody in this film. You listen to that title, Billy the Kid versus Dracula. Either you're immediately interested or you're not. And I feel like all the actors try hard.
Yeah.
My wife said it's like a film about a film. And that's probably about as good as a way to describe it. I mean, it's just not that they're bad, but it's, there's just something about the performances that seems a little off. I think they spent all their money hiring John Carradine, because now one thing I will give them credit for, I thought they came up with a really inexpensive and easy way to do the transformation from the vampire bat to Carradine. And the bat, like there would be a wagon, and the bat would go behind the wagon. Well, then Carradine would just walk out.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
At least it does for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on. Sorry if I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I'm with you on this. The effects, though they're cheap, they're good in this movie. They're really, as much fun as we're having with this movie, the effects are really fun. The disappearing and reappearing of John Carradine's Dracula is really well done. The vampire bat is really well done. It's very 60-ish, and it goddamn should be. This is from the 60s, but the effects fit the movie, and they should, and they're really well done. I'm glad you had the red lighting on, because that's what I enjoy most. I really love how the red lighting with the hypnotism and how John Carradine sold his face. You're right, John.
Yeah,
Carradine, great actor.
Our mutual friend Patrick McRae used to tell me stories about John Carradine in his later days. I don't know I can't remember if he'd been drinking or if he had some kind of memory problems, but he would be found roaming the streets of Los Angeles at various places and doing Shakespeare soliloquies.
Wow.
And to me, that sounds incredibly amazing and incredibly sad. Just you look at these guys, and as a kid, and even into my younger adult years, I figured, big actors, they got all kinds of money, and they don't have to worry about, we're going to buy groceries this week, or we're going to pay bills, But you still have problems. I mean, I wouldn't turn down a winning lottery ticket, but they still had problems, and the Carradine family. There's some good actors there. I know a lot of people, and I don't know. Maybe you saw this, and maybe you didn't in your youth. They used to make fun of kung fu with David, his son, and John appeared in a few episodes. I watch it. I buy it. I buy him as Kane. Admitted he doesn't look half Chinese, as they say. But
actually, when I was in junior high school, I told people, like, I was just a fan of Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, and then that's when my mom showed me the original Kung Fu, some of the original Kung Fu, because that again, my mom is somebody who, okay, if you're watching the newer version, you need to watch the older version to get an understanding of where this came from. And it always made me appreciate, one, my mom a lot more, and two, films. And there were people making fun of, David Carradine as a kung fu master, and I said, I buy it. I said, I enjoy the hell out of it. And number one, it's really well written. It's really good, really well choreographed. Yes, Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, and the original Kung Fu that you and I watched the first episode of on this podcast. It's really well done, and even though David Carradine is somebody who was a very, very, very good actor, probably one of the most underrated actors of his genre, really. And John Carradine is same thing. They may have very well spent all their money on John Carradine. Here's the thing, it was worth it. I literally think they should have took John Carradine and hired him for the movie Young Guns and did Billy Kid versus Dracula all over again. They really should have. Because that would have been, because at least you would have Emilio Estevez. And hell, who doesn't want to see a Charlie Sheen character get killed off?
I believe, though, that John had passed on by then.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure. I'll look it up later. But in that case, get David.
Yes.
Now, speaking of families and actors,
Ben Russell's in this.
Damn it, Joel! Don't be getting my. There's a character when we first meet the young lady, the niece, Elizabeth/Betty. Take your choice. She has broken up with her boyfriend. Let's see, his name is Dan Red Thorpe.
Yeah.
And Dan is trying hard to get rid of Billy and get back in with Elizabeth. Dan Thorpe is played by Bing Russell. And for those of you that don't know Bing Russell, he is the father of Kurt Russell, a.k.a. Snake Plissken. And therefore the grandfather of Wyatt Russell, a.k.a. John Walker, the USA agent, if you've watched Captain America and Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I have. That good series. Also, little fun fact, Elvis Presley, Kurt Russell made mention of this in a TCM interview. And when I watched Churro, I noticed that Elvis Presley wore his hat really strange. And I'm thinking, who wears their hat like that? I can't think of it. And my grandfather once said Ben Russell. And then I heard the interview. And I'm like, that is so cool that Elvis Presley asked Ben Russell, hey, if I ever make a Western, can I wear my cowboy hat the way you do? No one wears it the way you do. I think that was so cool.
That is. I think about that a lot, and how ironic that Kurt was in a movie with Elvis. For those of you that don't know, it's the On the Way to the Fair or Central Fair or something. I forget exactly the exact title. But he kicks Elvis. And that's how Elvis came to meet Bing and asked him that question. And then comes around and plays Elvis in the TV movie and does the voice in Forrest Gump. And then plays him again in 3,000 Miles to Graceland, kind of.
Yeah, there's 3,000 Miles of Graceland is an interesting movie because you have Kurt Russell, you have Kevin Costner, and they're dressed like Elvis. And basically, it's a fun little dispute of, did Elvis have a son? They answer that the long way around. And, there's some cool shooting. It's a good action movie. It's a fun watch.
One last thing, we'll get off 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Kevin Costner plays a great bad guy.
Yes, he does. He really, really does. Also, I think it's a day at the World's Fair, if I'm not mistaken.
There's something about a fair or circus or something, but yeah, it happened. It happened at the fair or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll look it up and I'll message Bush later and we'll put it on Facebook and Twitter. Um, we'll get it right.
You'll have to put it on Twitter. I don't have Twitter anymore, or X. I don't have a X account anymore.
Get back on the X account and then I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. Jill won't mind. I mean, no.
About this film that I found interesting, Billy the Kid's really only friend outside of his fiance is the doctor, and the doctor's played by a woman.
Yeah.
And for a quote Wild West film, that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
But the woman does it. The actress does a great job, and it actually those are some of my favorite scenes in the whole film, minus John Carradine, of course.
Yeah. You know what's weird, and I can't officially confirm this. I wish I could. Because she's a doctor, but there was a member of Billy the Kid's gang called Doc, and this woman is a doctor, but he keeps calling her Doc for short. I think the characters are nod to Doc in Billy the Kid's gang. I think. I can't confirm that, but I think it is.
So you mentioned your wife to watch this film with you. My wife, and there may or may not be a gun in the back of my head telling you this. Jill watched part of this, and I was like, man, this is a bad film, and she wanted me to tell you that Shane is still a much worse film. Randomly, at times, she'll just start going, Shane, or she'll send me a text. Why don't you tell Shane? Don't be surprised if that eventually becomes your nickname, Joel.
That's no worse than the nicknames Julie has for me. Anyway. Here's Julie. She's like, my wife. She's like, she literally was tired. She got so out of it. It's a fun story. She said, "Bitch, come here." I'm just like, but no. This movie's a lot of fun. For beginning to end, though the lighting is a bit wacky, it looked like John Carradine said he felt numb. He didn't look numb. He did not phone in his performance at all. He did a great job.
No.
And I think everybody does just a great job in this movie. Billy the Kid, the guy who played Billy the Kid, he's a bit more romantic. Look, Billy the Kid in most Westerns is romanticized anyway. Everyone, I think the only one really that he wasn't that I saw, it had who was that? I can't think of the actor who played Billy the Kid, but the actor who played Pat Garrett was oh god, the guy from The Last of Sheila. Who am I thinking of? Magnificent Seven. Huh?
Chris Christopherson?
Well, Chris Christopherson played Billy, but the guy who played Pat was I'm gonna kick myself because I see his face and I have his movies.
Now I gotta know. I gotta look it up.
Our man Flint. The guy I can't.
Lee Marvin?
No, I'm gonna kick myself because his name's on the tip of my tongue. Oh God.
Let's see. Hold on, I got Last of Sheila pulled up. Richard Benjamin?
No.
James Coburn?
Yes. See. And here's the thing, he's in Young Guns too, by the way. Oh my God. So yeah, Chris Christopherson plays Billy the Kid, and that movie's a lot more serious of a movie than most Billy the Kid movies. And I won't say Billy the Kid is romanticized in that movie because he's really not in a sense. But for most Billy the Kid movies you see, he's romanticized. In this, he's a lot more laid back, but he is also romanticized in a more different way. He's the romantic lead for the guy's niece, which is interesting.
Well,
overall,
what is your impression of the actual Billy the Kid? You personally?
honestly, and I hate to say this because I learned as much as I could about him. There's still not enough information. Um, it's and I say that with this, the Santa Fe, the Santa Fe area was full of corruption. We'll say it wasn't a case of not enough law. It was a case of too much law, and the law was sort of bought and paid for. We'll say, and again, it's real dicey. The John Tunstall thing you can get into, but because Tunstall was murdered, no doubt, and that's where Billy Kid supposedly went on the vendetta trail, where he swore a blood oath he's going to kill every man. The legend of Billy the Kid is interesting, but the facts around Billy the Kid are even more interesting. Many point to that he fell in love with a young woman who was I believe, a farmer's daughter, if I'm not mistaken. And again, as far do I believe Pat Garrett shot Billy the Kid? I hate to call anybody a liar, a historical figure. I think Pat Garrett said he shot Billy the Kid because I like to think that Pat Garrett is a lot smarter than people give him credit for. Really smart, and sort of saw what was going on around everywhere, like this whole Santa Fe rain, and said, if I say I shot this guy and just bring a body, who's going to really know it's Billy the Kid? There's only one picture of Billy the Kid. I could find some young kid to look like Billy the Kid and call that Billy. That's my wild Billy the Kid theory. Sorry, go ahead. What's your thoughts?
Do you think that guy that showed up in, what was it, the 1950s and claimed to be him? Do you think that could have been or was? I can't think of the guy's name.
Oh,
Yeah, Millie Estevez plays him in Young Guns 2.
Brushy Bill Roberts is what. Well, they said his alias was Brushy Bill Roberts, but
Right.
the guy I didn't hear you talk about. I've seen the movie, and it was the document that starts. I think it could have been, but my thing of it is, you're never gonna really know because again, there was the one fact is this. Yes, there was a lot of corruption on both sides. I'm not going to say there was a right and a wrong because I'm not even sure there was. But I do think other people outside of William Bonney saw that. And especially when Patrick Floyd Garrett, who was, I think, more honorable than people give him credit for, because many people, when you watch a movie about Pat Garrett, he's often depicted as, well, he was just another bought out badge, and I don't fully buy it. I think it's too easy to pin him as that, but I don't fully bought that his badge was paid for by the Santa Fe Ring. Sure, who wasn't being paid by the Santa Fe Ring at that point, but I also think he made a conscious choice. There's already been a lot of bloodshed here. Why should there be more? And I think Floyd made a choice of this stop. Patrick Floyd Garrett made the point. This stops here.
Could be.
In my opinion. What's that? I'm sorry.
I was just say, I agree with I agree that it's possible. The reputation. Him and Jesse James are kind of interchangeable. I'm going with reputation, not actual historical fact.
Right.
Because, like you said, we don't know exactly what happened and carried on. But Billy's got kind of I don't. He's a weird one. I've never understood this thing about, let's take a criminal, a crazy man, and let's turn him into a folk hero. Like they did with Jesse James. It's like, no, he's a psychopath. Billy, or at least had the reputation. Billy, again, reputation, not talking reality, kind of had that. So, it's this movie, Billy the Kid versus Dracula. You've got the appeal, if you will, of two monsters going at it. Not like Godzilla versus King Kong, but it's an interesting setup. It's are you familiar with the concept of what they call the Godzilla threshold?
Yeah.
Well, for anybody it isn't, quickly it's this. Things have gotten so bad that literally nothing can make it worse.
Yeah.
So that's when you go, hey, why don't we bring Godzilla in? I mean, your city's already getting destroyed. All you're doing is bringing in another monster to fight another monster. And a lot of after the initial introductory films, a lot of the kaiju films are that. I mean, it's basically Godzilla versus Mothra versus whoever versus. So I mean, honestly, this is kind of a version of that, in my opinion, anyway. Again, we're talking perception, not reality. So, who's the perfect person to fight a monster? Another monster. It's one of the things. I know you've seen Freddy versus Jason, or as I called it, Friday the 13th, Part 13. Who would you get to fight Freddy Krueger? Jason Voorhees, and he's going to kick his ass and cut off his head. So, that's part of the appeal of this. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry if I interrupt you. I just wanted to touch upon this. With Billy the Kid, with the actual Billy the Kid, what's depicted of him is something you described, that he was this crazed, wild gunslinger that broke. Because here is what's documented. There are some documentation, but again, it's very little. So you have to sort of read between the undocumented shit. Billy the Kid's escaped from jail, but how he got to jail is sort of then, Pat Garrett brought him in. Okay, it's like, really that easy? And then his escape, and it's like, so there came the story that he had to deal with the governor of Santa Fe, which would have made actual sense because Billy the Kid could have testified to how John Tunstall was murdered. I do think there's some sense in that. I also think that Billy, the most other documented thing is what? Billy the Kid's death. And it's really funny how those things are like, they're really suspect. And again, I'm not calling Patrick Floyd Garrett a liar. I'm calling Patrick Floyd Garrett a sort of, he chose to do the right thing when a lot of wrong people were around at that time. And the right thing may not have been necessarily to kill Billy the Kid, but to say you killed Billy the Kid and tell him, get the hell out of Santa Fe and don't come the hell back.
Yeah.
And nobody will bother you. And I do think that's what happened, in my opinion. I can't prove any of that. I don't think here's the thing. I don't think history wants anything proved, really.
It depends on who's doing it, In general, yeah, I think they like once they get an established narrative, they like to keep it that way. One thing about this film, I want to warn anybody that's watching this. There are a lot of places you can get this film.
Yes.
I watched it on I think it was on Tubi.
Yeah, that's where I watched it.
Not a good version. It was blurry. It was very dark. And there's not a lot of money here. However, we're telling you, take it, sit back and enjoy it and just have a little fun with it. Don't go, oh, well, this movie, obviously isn't a $10 million picture. No, it's not. I doubt this was a $1 million picture. And like Joel said, I'm pretty sure most of the money went to pay John Carradine.
It was money well spent too. That's the thing. Carradine is just so good in this movie, and I think that's the thing too. When he's not on screen, he still feels like a menace in this movie, and that's sort of the goal of it. Like Billy the Kid, in a sense, it's not that he's stupid. It's just that he doesn't want to believe in the superstition. Give me one moment. I gotta go check my kids.
Oh, sure. No, go ahead. Something I'll say to the folks. I mean, think about it. Your friend comes to you and says, "Hey, so and so's a vampire." You're gonna laugh. You're not gonna take it serious, and it takes Billy a little while to get to that point. Just like they do in a lot of films. So it's not going to change your life. No, it's not going to be any great shakes, but go into it with a lot heart and a smile, and just enjoy it for what it is, and then go, God, why did Butch and Joel make me watch this film?
Joel Sains chose it. That goddamn no good. Yeah, I did choose this movie because it's very lighthearted, and it is. It's not a movie to be taken seriously, but there are moments of it. It shines through, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And you won't get bored at all. You'll sort of wonder why do these Romanian gypsies camp outside of Camp Blood? Have they learned nothing? And the answer is no. They've learned absolutely nothing. It's like keep going to Camp Crystal Lake. You've absolutely learned nothing. Keep buying a house in Haddonfield that's located on 45 Lambkin Lane. You've learned absolutely dick. So seriously, learned nothing. Fun movie. John Carradine, though he says he was dumb, great performance. He did not phone this in, and he could have. He could have easily said, "I'll take the check and I'll phone everything in." He took the check, but he phoned nothing in.
Agreed.
What's your pick for next week, sir?
Well, we've got one we're going to do, and there's a special reason that I suggested this to you and Patrick. We're going to do one next week on the Friday, and it's Shaft. So we're going to do Shaft next week. And there's a slight surprise toward the end of that video that Joel doesn't know about. So if he has a shock on his face, maybe you should find out.
Oh wow! Here's the thing. I have Shaft recorded on my television for where they showed it on TCM, so I can watch it at any time. So I'm gonna give it some rewatching this coming week.
Well, part of the reason, and I told this to Joel, and Patrick will hopefully be here with us. Part of the reason I suggested this is I got the Shaft Criterion collection for Christmas last year, and I've still not watched it. And I love Shaft. I'll go ahead and tell you, I love that film. I enjoy it, but I'm not even going to get started because it'll be another 10 minutes of me gushing about it. And it's like, you know what? I was thinking, you know what? I know it's not a Western, but let's toss this off Joel and Patrick. And both of them were happy to do it. I'm really looking forward to it.
By the way, if the Rosenbaums get another pet, name it Shane. That's all.
All kidding aside, my first dog's name was Shane.
Nice.
I used to work with this guy named Shane, and he tried to be funny. He's like, my name is Butch. My dog's named Butch. And at the time, he was dating my cousin. I looked at him, and I just laughed really loud in his face. I said, you know what? My dog's name is Shane. And he turns and looks at my cousin, and she's like,
yes. The things we name our pets. That's the thing.
Exactly.
But obviously, first of all, for my buddy Butch Rosenbalm, thank you as always, sir. This is always a blast to do, and I can't wait to do Shaft with you guys Friday.
Well, thank you as always for asking me in. I appreciate it, and then have fun.
Yeah, I will. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, Butch.
You as well. See y'all later.
Take care. Bye.